Dear everyone, everywhere, wherever you are, whenever you are, greeting you with all the greetings that you like to have. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day. Assalamu alaikum, Saida, and all this kind of greeting. Guten Nacht, bonjour, bonjour, not bonjour, and others. The Muslims are still celebrating the 6th day of Eid, of sacrifices, and the people who made Hajj are going back home since the last few days. Today, our discussion will be about a very important topic called humanitarian hypocrisy. We discussed it yesterday in Arabic language, which had a lot of reaction, alhamdulillah, and a lot of interest. And today we'll be discussing it in English. I'd like to thank my colleague Aya Abu Zainab for preparing this short slideshow. Slide. شريحة. First of all, would like to congratulate NASA for developing and building this James Webb, I think. James Webb telescope. They started building this telescope more than 6 years ago. Congratulations, and we take our hat for NASA for that. To do that, we have to remind our Muslim brothers and colleagues the statement mentioned by Dr. Pierre Curie, who him and his wife won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1903. He said, we have received only 30 books from the libraries of Muslims in Andalusia, which let us to be able to divide the atom. Could have received all the books were in the libraries of Andalusia at that time, not being burned by Isabella and Ferdinando and the other kings, the burning of hatred. What he said, we could have been walking between the galaxies, between the planets, between the stars, between the moons. Could have been building roads between them at that time. That's what Pierre Curie mentioned. But before that, Allah has mentioned what James Webb telescope showed you. In Surah An-Nazi'at, verse 27, 28, 29, Allah said, are you, talking to the man, like you and me, more difficult creation or heaven? أنتم أشد خلقا أم السماء بناها. I mean that actually the heaven or the skies have been a building, constructed building. This verse 27. He raised its ceiling and proportioned it. رفع سمكها فسواها. He raised its ceiling and the thickness, which is سمكها, and made it even. وأغطش ليلها وأخرج ضحاها, and made its night very dark and its day very bright. This is verse 27, 28, 20, and this is what have been seen by James Webb telescope. the sky containing great stars. This is Surah Al-Buruj. والسماء ذات البروج. Bruj. Not only stars, others as well. Blessed is he who has placed in the sky great stars and placed herein a burning lamp and luminous moon وجعل فيها سراجا وقمرا منيرا. الفرقان 61. And hasten to forgive. وسارعوا إلى مغفرة من ربكم وجنة عرضها كعرض السماوات والأرض أعدت للمتقين. And hasten to forgiveness from your Lord, and a garden as wide as heavens, skies, and earth, prepared for you. You are the righteous people. Al Imran 133. O company of jinn and mankind, if you are able to pass beyond the regions of heavens, samawat, فانفذوا. إن استطعتم أن تنفذوا من أقطار السماوات والأرض فانفذوا لا تنفذون إلا بسلطان. If you are able to pass beyond the regions of the heavens, skies, and earth, then pass. You will not pass except by authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ar-Rahman 33. It is Allah. He is Allah, not it is Allah. It's a wrong translation. He is Allah who erected the heavens without pillars that you can see. ورفع السماوات بغير عمد ترونها. رفع السماوات بغير. This is what James Webb telescope has seen. We find here that the sky is considered as a building, constructed building, having thickness, diameter, width, constellation, which is Bruj. Constellation means planets, stars, houses of the sun and the moon, palaces, water and sand and others. The Bruj. And God raised it on pillars that we don't see. You can imagine everyone walking on earth now. Around us are pillars holding up the skies. You can imagine how thick, how wide, how strong, how deep, and how high these pillars. رفع السماوات بغير عمد ترونها. And we spoke about its night covers any darkness and brings the brightness for the day. What is that to do with James Webb telescope? It is a message for all the young people who are supposed to be Muslims. What are you doing? Spending our time watching the football league in Europe, France, Italy, Britain, Spain, Portugal, following chit-chat, TikTok, wasting our time on PlayStation, games, days and nights. Why I congratulated NASA? Because they did this incredible, magnificent work, constant work for 60 years to build one telescope. The state of America managed to put the fund to build this telescope. We don't know how many billions of dollars has been spent to build a telescope to see the universe. And we are the people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the universe to us more than 1440 years ago, are playing games, are wasting our time trying to go to make chat Facebook, messages, likes, hashtag, and doing nothing. I had a discussion with some young people. They said, we don't have a job. One of the young girls was talking to me yesterday, day before yesterday, said, keep looking for a job till you find one. But at the meantime, make initiatives. You and your colleague, make a project. She said to me, but nobody's going to pay for us. I said, at my young age time, when I came to UK, it took me 1.5 years nearly till I got my license to become a doctor. And I was going from a hospital to a hospital, from a town to a town, from a city to a city in the middle of UK to learn and to be with the consultant so they can see me. When I passed my exam, they gave me a job. And my first job was, I think, in November or December 1978, and I landed in UK. I'm at 13 months, not 1.5 years. And after 13 months, I got my first pay. But I was constantly studying, constantly training, and constantly sitting the exam. I failed the exam 5 times. What do you want to do? What do you want to do, young people? To wake up in the morning and to become a millionaire? Look at all the millionaires. Start as poor people here and there. And they became what they became because of their hard work, their consistency, their stability, their vision, their dedication. But if you think that it's a mere luck like this will change you from a poor man to a millionaire or billionaire next day, forget it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Let's go to the subject that we're going to discuss. Humanitarian hypocrisy. What do I mean by that? Let me give you some examples. When Ukraine crisis happened months ago, the whole of Europe and America and the West stood up on their feet to start to support the refugees and to support the displaced people. No problem with this. But they were discriminating inhumanely against the non-white who came out of Ukraine. Those white people come this way, the other go to this way. Racial discrimination, unjust behavior. And they forgot about all the other issues and global problems, such as Afghanistan crisis, Syria problem, Yemen problem, Bangladesh flooding, and the drought in East Africa, which are affecting badly Ethiopia and Somalia. Okay? On the other side, I was trying very hard. We were trying very hard to convince some of our Muslim charities to have a response, even a message, even a statement in support of the suffering the suffering of the Ukrainian people. Deaf ears, have no time. We're raising money for Afghanistan, we're raising money for Bangladesh, we're raising money for Palestine. I said, raise money as you want for anybody, but this is something which includes millions of people, and most of you are in Europe and America. And when Europe and America will wake up, I said, who stood with them during the Ukraine crisis? They found that you became racist as well. So cannot actually blame the Western people of the racial discrimination. We were doing the same. And we failed as a forum to convince the Muslims and the Arab charities. Maybe a handful of them responded, but not the rest. What made me to bring this to your attention today? A few days ago, we thought we cannot let go as World Action Humanitarian Forum without having a stand to measure and study the impact of Ukraine crisis on the global economy, particularly in third world corrupt countries run by corrupt individuals, military regimes, or security regime who are doubling the prices of commodity rocket high. And every time they say, oh, it's because of Ukraine. Oh, it's because of Ukraine. Oh, no, it's not because of Ukraine. It's because you are thief, you and your government, unfortunately. We had a discussion with one of our colleagues who is heading one of the top organizations in the West. You know what he said? Lastly, oh my God, you are fed up with Ukraine now. But what we are going to do now to make an appeal to raise fund for East Africa. Said, my God, we've been saying East Africa a year ago because of the drought affecting the region over the last 4 or 5 years. Now we have a wake-up call. You know why? Because most of the European and the Western organizations raised a lot of money. One organization only raised nearly 360 million pounds. With the tax refund, it could go to up to 500 million pounds. Pound, not dollar. And they cannot spend it. They cannot have an access to the war zone in Ukraine. That's why they have to move hypocritically to another area where they can raise funds for it. So what will happen with this? Hundreds of millions of pounds, or nearly billion of pounds, raised for Ukraine, and people of Ukraine are still suffering, but you cannot spend the money on them. And you're going again to another area to raise fund for a problem we should have been raising fund for it years ago. This is why I call it humanitarian hypocrisy. The problems in Ethiopia is extremely bad. The problem in Somalia is extremely bad. Even Somalia, the first day or the first night of Ramadan, there was a big fire in the main market in Hargeisa. All the small businessmen lost about nearly $2 billion in one day. Now, but people did nothing. And it was Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. When you young people are going to work in humanitarian work, you have to be impartial. You have to be neutral, but impartial to everyone, neutral to everyone, and fair to everyone, and inclusive with everyone, and transparent to everyone. What happened with the Ukraine crisis, as well as the plight of drought in East Africa, is a scandalous behavior of the big organizations who are leading the global humanitarian work. From last week, we had 2 questions are left. First of all is a question by Dr. Hassan Junaidi from Gaziantep in Turkey. First question was, or is, how can we advocate for some unproductive paradigm or program or projects in humanitarian context? Before responding to it, we have to see why it is unproductive, why it is not fruitful. Did you find the wrong partners? Did we write the wrong project or the wrong program? Did we have enough fund for it? Did we have good human resources to manage them? Why is it not productive? Or it is a very strategic paradigm and the public or the common will not understand it. We have to spend more money to advocate and to educate the public. We cannot just, Dr. Hassan, go back and put an answer without having the reasons or the causes of being unproductive. There's some reasons we have to understand to make it unproductive, or to make the product or the project, sorry, not very successful. If you find the causes, we'll be able to treat it. The second question from Dr. Hassan as well, he said, if the foundations of building the social capital, you know what social capital, I'll talk about it later on, were destroyed, will we be able to rebuild it again? This is my question to all of you young people. What do we mean by social capital? What is the most important element or part of our social capital? For myself, it is you, the individual, young man and young woman. It's the most important component of the social capital of any country, of any society, of any community, or any zone, at any time. Those countries or those regimes, particularly the military and the security, who do not invest in human capital will never have a social capital. Social capital is not only oil, gas, land, water, tourism. It is who is going to manage them, who is going to sustain them, who is going to develop them. It is you. So if the foundation of building the social capital were destroyed, will we be able to rebuild again? Yes, will. Yes, we will be able to rebuild them again and again and again. And if they, but actually based on investing in the most important component of the social capital, which are the human resources, which is you and me. I know some countries having governments have a very extremely powerful expelling power, and let all the pioneers and young educated people to leave the country, because there is no civil liberty space. There is no freedom. Most of these countries are run by military and security, who make inside the state 2 or 3 states. States of master, states of slaves, and states of servant serving the master from the slaves, or servants serving the masters from the 3rd layer. Yes, Dr. Hassan, we can rebuild the social capital again and again, and don't stop rebuilding and keep rebuilding them. This is the second question came to us from Dr. Hassan Junaidi. From, I think, Togo or some country in Africa, Muhammad Rayani, he sent a question and he said, what is humanitarian media? What is the humanitarian media? Very important questions. Humanitarian media is the media which is covering any humanitarian response. It's covering the plight or the suffering of the people in need. Humanitarian media needs to have ethics, etiquettes, moral values, manners. Humanitarian media need to have what we call respect for the poor people, the elderly, the sick, the displaced, the homeless, the victims of war, the victims of rape, the people who need psychosocial support. humanitarian media need not to embarrass the young children by putting the logo of the organization on the book, on the bag. So when the young boy go to school, they will tell him, oh, you are a beggar. You are getting this from a charity organization. Humanitarian principles, humanitarian charter. Okay? I mean, humanitarian media charter. This is what we need to talk to Brother Muhammad Rani about humanitarian media. Yes, we need ethical, value-based, and value-driven humanitarian media where we respect the dignity of every individual, that we claim that we are serving, inshallah. This is question number 3 from Africa. Question number 4 was from Egypt, from another pioneering individual. His name is Dr. Muhammad Tantawi. He said, who are the rights holders? This, for me, I know it very well. And the dream that you stop calling the poor people beneficiaries. They are not beneficiaries. They are the rights holders. The rights holders are those young, miserably looking children, orphans, displaced, widows, and refugees, whom we have their fund, whom we spend their fund on our program, whom we take our salaries and our per diem from their fund. We cannot call them just beneficiaries. You know who are the beneficiaries? The beneficiaries are the chair of the board, the trustees, the chief executives, the directors, and the employees. But they are the rights holder, and they are the organization owners. Who owns the organization? The people who own the organization are the poor, because we claim that we created these organizations to support widows, support orphans, support refugees, support the sick, support the uneducated, support the victims of rape, and. So the money is their money. So if the money is their money, we cannot call them beneficiaries. They are the owners and the ultimate rights holder. This is to answer the question of Dr. Muhammad Tantawi. Why we look down at the poor and the widows and the orphans and the elderly and the sick and the refugees and the displaced people and the victims of rape. Why? It's not their fault. You don't judge me and look down at me and let me to lose my credibility because I became a refugee and I became a displaced individual. No, you can't do that to me. It's not me. When I come to your country, you have to respect me. You have to give me my right. I didn't want to come to your country as a refugee. Who forced me to come out of my country? It's people that has no relation to my country. Unfortunately, that's why those rights holders are extremely important to be addressed, because the money is their money. And the least we can do is to compare our style of living to their style of living. They live in tents, we live in houses, we live in villas, we live in mansions, we live in flats. They work, we have cars, 1 or 2 or 3 cars. They have no schooling for their children, but we send our children to private schools. They don't have holiday, but from their money. who buy tickets and who go to Europe and America and other places in the Middle East to spend the holiday. With the money of rights holders, with the money of the owner of the organization, we spend them us. So who is the beneficiary? We are the beneficiaries. And they are the owner of the organizations. And this is my message to you, young people. Try to put things straight again and again and again. We are employees for the poor. نحن أجراء لدى الفقراء. We are employed by the poor people, which I call them the rights holders. Today we spoke about 4 or 5 issues. Issue number 1 was the congratulation to NASA for the James Webb telescope, and our message to our young people who, instead of actually developing Muhammad Webb or Muhammad Ali telescope or Muhammad Mahmoud telescope, actually we waste our time chit-chatting, TikToking, hashtagging, liking and not liking, liking and not liking, and wasting our time. Yes, number 1. And we made a reference to the Quran of the verses which talks about the universe. The second, we mentioned the humanitarian hypocrisy, which is not only affecting the Western organization, but also the Muslim organizations, including regarding the issue of Ukraine, Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, Bangladesh, drought in Horn of Africa. Not only that, I forgot to mention the Uyghur problem, the Rohingya problem, the Kashmir problem, the Eritrean problem, the problem in DRC, Democratic Republic of Africa, of Congo, sorry, not of Africa, of Congo, the Central African Republic, ethnic cleansing, the Sub-Saharan Africa. Who's talking about them? No one, because they don't bring money. That's why call it humanitarian hypocrisy or money-led organization, or money-driven organization. And we answered the 4 questions, the 2 from Dr. Hassan Junaidi and 2 from Dr. Ayman Tantawi, as well as Muhammad Rani. I will stop until thanking you. Next week, I mean not next week, tomorrow, I'll be disappearing for about 2 weeks because we're going to Bosnia, inshallah, for about 10 days with a big delegation of young people like you from Canada, followed by the first ever meeting we have in Turkey about the dimensions, the global humanitarian dimension. You might ask me, what are you talking about? What do you mean first? We know that the humanitarian dimension. I said, no. Dimension is not a program. It's not a project. The new dimension we need to discuss, it was not discussed, is the dimension of research and study, developing, training and capacity building, philosophy and thinking ability, culture, history, values, manner, morality of humanitarian worker and humanitarian organization, humanitarian diplomacy, media, the impact of global problems on humanitarian work, and others. This is what we are discussing for the first ever time in Arabic in Istanbul from 26 to 28. That's how I'll be disappearing. If any one of you would like to join, if you are in Istanbul, or you would like to register, please send a message. We'll send you the link, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. May Allah bless you, inshallah. and I can see some old friends and good colleagues, and like Rasha, like Arsh Farid, like Gul, Badakhshan, and others as well for with us. Thank you very much. Salam alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. From Australia, from Egypt, from Pakistan, or Afghanistan, all the best for all of you, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.